Okay, we're going to start over here. We're in the middle of Tehillim Samech Zayin 67. And if you recall last week, we spoke about this idea that in the challenging times for Klal Yisrael, and really challenging times for the world, which is what Dovid is speaking about, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is looking for ways to be able to illuminate His presence in the world, specifically starting with Klal Yisrael, and as we're going to see in today's commentaries, that it goes from Klal Yisrael to the rest, spreads to the rest of the world, and that whatever challenge and whatever difficulty HaKadosh Baruch Hu is putting us through is really just to bring out the powers that we have inside of ourselves that are going to be able to bring about this illumination of Hashem. It's now that we're holding by Chodesh Mevarchim, we just blessed the month of Kislev, so we can already say Chanukah Torah. And there's something that we've spoken about a lot over the years in regards to Chanukah, in regards to the Jewish people. And I want to just share one idea that we speak about pretty much every year, but another idea as well, which I think that we're beginning to see right now. The Midrash tells us that Klal Yisrael is doimel l'zeisim, we are compared to olives. And the Midrash says, why are we compared to olives? What is the great praise about a Jewish people being compared to an olive? And the Midrash says, because just like an olive, when you take it off the tree, it's very rough, it's very tough, doesn't have any taste, it's very bitter. But when you put it into the olive press and you press down on it, it squeezes out the pure, unadulterated olive oil, and that you can use to light the candles, to light the menorah, to light your house, to lighten the world. So too says the Midrash, the same thing is by Klal Yisrael. That if you take a Jew just the way that they are, so they're a little bit rough, a little bit tough, bitter, not so geschmack, not so great. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts us into the press, into the olive press, and that is the nisyonos, the challenges and the difficulties that a person goes through in life, that's what begins to squeeze out the purity and the brightness and the kedusha that's inside of their neshama. And therefore we are like zaysim, we're like olives. It's not a bad thing, it's actually a very good thing. But I was thinking this year, I don't know if I heard this from someplace else, but the same is true. My kids were just on some kind of contest for brachas. What bracha you make on this, what bracha you make on that. So the question was, what bracha do you make on a raw olive? An olive right off the tree. What bracha do you make on that olive? Now, of course, we know that when you buy the olive in the store and you eat it out of the jar or the can, you make ha'etz. That's what you make if it's already pickled and it's already fermented and it's already made into an olive that you're going to enjoy. What bracha do you make in an olive that just came right off the tree? So my kids asked me, Tati, what bracha do you make on that olive? So I said, shahakol. They said, no, you don't make shahakol on an olive. I said, shahakol. You make shahakol on the olive. So it's some call-in number, and they press the shahakol. Yes, you're right. Wow, you're great. You got it right. What's the pshat? Why do you make shahakol on something that's coming off of a tree? Because if the olive is in the state of being that no one's going to be able to enjoy it and in those conditions, if it's not what the olive is really being produced for, it's not the eitz, it's not the fruit of the tree that we are used to eating, and therefore you give it, nobody would eat it under those conditions. But since there is some kind of benefit, even a little tiny bit of benefit you're going to get when you bite into it and you're going to eat it, so you have to make some kind of bracha, but it's a shahakol, it's a generic bracha, it's not the specific blessing for the olive the way that it is when you take it out of the bottle or the can and you eat it. So that's another reason why Klal Yisrael are doimel l'zeisim, we are similar, we are compared to olives. Because if you leave a Jew the way that they are, and you leave them in that state right off the tree, the bitter, the hard, the very just rough and tough Jew that they are, so that's not the way that a Jew is meant to be. But when he becomes pickled, when he gets fermented, when he goes through the things in life that make him much more, much easier to be able to digest and much more pleasureful and much more wonderful, so then that Jew becomes a Jew that they are supposed to be. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts his nation through challenges and difficulties and battles and the world against us and anti-Semitism on the rise and all that we are seeing and soldiers in Gaza and trying to find the hostages and destroying the terror, all that's going on. So that is HaKadosh Baruch Hu removing the Jewish people from the olive tree, and he's putting us into the canisters of life, so to speak, where he is fermenting us and pickling us and getting us ready. And that is why we see that the Jewish people are remarkable in what is going on right now. The renaissance of Yiddishkeit and of people getting excited about Torah and of mitzvahs and recognizing that there's nothing that's going on in this world besides that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's is gonna save us and rescue us and help us. And the most unaffiliated people in the world are putting on tefillin, are wearing tzitzis, are starting to keep some semblance of Shabbos and kashrus and the like. It's because when you take the olive off the tree and you put it into the cooker, so the beauty that's in that olive, the real taste, the pleasure that's in there, it comes out of itself. And that is really what we're seeing right now with Klal Yisrael. We're seeing unprecedented times of the Jewish people. We just had yesterday in Shul, we had two young men, brothers, who were at the Nova Music Festival on that fateful day on Simchas Torah, October 7th, and they are two of the survivors. And they have harrowing stories, miraculous stories. At the end of the day, they said there were bullets flying all around. There were handheld missiles that the terrorists were shooting at them, blowing things up left and right, and they survived like unusual siyata d'shemaya that they survived. And they said at the end of the day, we realize they're not religious, not yet. They're on their way. One of them was already wearing tzitzis. They're on their way. They said, we realized it's not about the guns and the ammunition and the army and the policemen and the security guards. Nothing. Nobody did anything. They were all getting shot and killed. And then how is it that we were able to survive? We can't explain it any other way except that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was watching over us and protecting us from every single bullet, that it should not hit us in the wrong place and kill us like so many other people that were lying on the floor, Rahman al-Islam, that were dead. So one of the brothers said there was a point where they were like he's a medic from the army, so he was taking all the people that were wounded and injured and he was trying to save their lives. Apparently he saved something close to like 90 lives on that day. He was working so fast around the clock to save people. So they were like on some sun-tinted area, and there's bullets flying all around them, and the soldiers had been shot, and the tank, there was one tank that was there, it was gone, and the policemen were all shot. There was nobody that had ammunition that was alive, so everybody was dead. And he's standing there with this group of Jews, totally unaffiliated Jews. He says, you don't even know what they look like. I'm talking about dreadlocks and no religion, nothing. And he looks at them. He's a man who comes from a religious family, and he says, we have nothing else to do right now except to pray to Hashem. He said, everybody repeat after me. And he starts saying over the Shir Ma'ala. He says, and he says, all these kids, all of them together, him and them, they all start saying this one Tehillim. He said, I kid you not. We could feel there was like a force field of protection that was around us, and nothing happened to us. How do you explain that? He said. You can only explain it one way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching out for us. Hashem is protecting us. Hashem, you pray to Hashem, you do a mitzvah, you do something, it brings extra shmira, extra protection. This is the olives of Klal Yisrael. When you take them and you put them into that place where you're squeezing down on them, where else are they going to turn? Only to Hashem. Where else are they going to go when they're being fermented, when they're going through the cooker, when they're going through the whole procedure, the whole situation they're in? That's when the real beauty of the Jewish people starts coming out and starts expressing itself. And that's the real pleasure that you get from the Jew, and that's when you can make a ha'etz, not a shahakol. You make a ha'etz on such a person. And that's when this person, he starts looking like a different person. And you can see on his face, he's proud, he's wearing tzitzis. He said, this is the breastplate of every single Jew. We all have to be wearing this. And they were mechazik, and they were talking about Hashem, and they realized all the miracles in this. The other brother was hiding behind the car, and there was a little space between the car and a tank. And at the last minute, he decides, he sees all these terrorists, he's going to go under the tank to protect himself. The minute that he leaves that from the car to the little space under the tank, suddenly a missile comes flying right through that space, where he was just a second ago. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu kept me alive. Hashem wants something from me. And that's what's going on right now. And that's what we have to take a CHIZUK. Again, we're so far away. And we're not feeling those miracles. We have to live vicariously through the miracles that are happening for Klal Yisrael. How many soldiers in Gaza already are talking about miracle after miracle after miracle. There's no other way to describe how it is they survived this battle and that battle. Hand-to-hand combat, went into a house that was booby-trapped and nothing happened to them. Miraculous. And that's Hashem squeezing out the pure olive oil and fermenting and pickling us, so to speak, to make us that much more pleasurable in the eyes of Hashem. The real flavor of the Jew is revealing itself during these times. So I believe that we left off on the third verse in Samech Zayin, and it says like this: L'da'as ba'aretz darkecha. So as you are illuminating your countenance in this world, your way will be known on earth. B'chol goy mishuasecha, your salvation will be amongst all of the nations, all of the goyim that are there. So Rav Hirsch writes on this pasuk the following idea. Firstly, he says, there's a path which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is pursuing so that he'll have sovereignty over the entire world. And secondly, there's the road that he wants us that we have to follow to be able to achieve that. Remember, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goal at the end of the day is, he is the Melech, he's the king, he is running the world in sovereignty, and everybody is serving Hashem. However, the only way that we're going to get there is if there's a pathway, there's a derech, there's a road that we're going to use to be able to follow Hashem in such a way. And therefore says Rav Hirsch, Dovid HaMelech is davening. And his davening is that this countenance of Hashem should shine amongst us in the events of our history and our lives, in such a manner that the nations will recognize Hashem's path in the development of human affairs. Meaning, and again, it's very much what is either happening, and there will be those people that will deny it until it gets very clear to them, or it's happening as we speak. And that is that as the world will see that Klal Yisrael is a treasured nation, and as the world will see that there are nisim and niflais, there are tremendous signs and wonders and miracles that are happening for us, and there's a clear path that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is taking and wants us to walk on, and we are, Be'ez Hashem, going on that pathway that Hashem has designated for us, so then the nations of the world are going to come to realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that is guiding the world so that it gets to the ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal is that everybody should recognize Hashem. It's not enough for just Klal Yisrael to recognize Hashem at this point in history. We had to start there, and that's what we're going to see coming up in the Tehillim. It starts with Klal Yisrael because we are the nation that understand there's one God. We understand that there's a rebellion. We understand that there's Torah. 80% of the Jewish population is assimilated right now. Okay, we're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to change that. And it's slowly changing. It starts over there. But the goal is not that we should be, only Klal Yisrael should be the nation that is recognizing Hashem. Remember, Hashem's sovereignty, His kingdom, is incomplete unless the whole world recognizes Hashem. We daven for this all Yomim Neroyim. The whole Yomim Neroyim is all about not just us, it's about the whole universe coming under the umbrella of Hashem's kingdom. And that's the only way that the king is fully a king. As long as there are people that are fighting against us, as long as there are people that are denying HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as long as there are people that are trying to stamp out Klal Yisrael, who are the banim atem laHashem Elokeichem, we are the children of Hashem. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingdom is lacking. It's not complete. It's missing something. And therefore, says Rav Hirsch, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you want us to be able to get to that place, you've got to reveal to us what is the way, what is the pathway, which way does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want us to go to be able to get there. Somebody just sent me, as I mentioned in one of the previous classes, maybe it was live on Shabbos, but everybody, there's so many clips that are going around from soldiers and other people. I think that my phone is going to explode from all the clips that I'm receiving. But somebody sent me something last night, a beautiful thing. They were interviewing a soldier who's right there in Gaza, right there. He's a frum soldier. And they asked him, tell us a couple of stories. What's going on over there? So it seems to be he's a reservist, and he's with a lot of the reservists. And he said, a 54-year-old who's colonel, high-ranking officer, reservist, comes to him and he says, I think the man's name is Yigal, he says, Yigal, he says, come here for a second. I need to ask you a favor. He says, well, what can I do for you, Colonel? He says, I need you to put tefillin on me. I don't know, maybe he never wore tefillin ever in his life. He doesn't. I need you to put tefillin on me. So he said, this officer is high-ranking, like one of the highest-ranking officers. He said, you need me to put tefillin on you? What's going on? He says, it is so clear to me that the only way that we're going to win this battle is if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is fighting the war for us. He said, I have to start doing something. He said, please, I want to put on tefillin. He says, no problem. So there's a place in where they are, like a shul, tent with a Sefer Torah and tefillin, and he takes him there, and he helps this 54-year-old Israeli who doesn't know how to put on tefillin. High-ranking officer, he's putting on tefillin. He said the guy's crying like a baby. He's putting on tefillin for the first time, and he's there, and he thanks him, and he tells him, anytime, any day, here we are, it's right over here. That's one story. Story number two is, there's apparently one of the doctors who's, I guess, a medic, happens to be a very successful doctor, very wealthy doctor, everything. He comes to this guy, Yigal, and says, Yigal, I need tzitzis. He says, doctor, you need tzitzis? I need tzitzis. I need 2 pairs. Get me 2 pairs of tzitzis. He says, you should know, already for a while I started wearing tefillin every day. He says, but my wife is not happy about it. I mentioned once in passing I want to start wearing tzitzis. She says, no way, you're not putting on tzitzis. So he says, but now I'm at war. I'm at battle. I need extra protection. I want to start wearing tzitzis now, so when I go home, be'ezrat Hashem, I'll tell my wife, what do you want from me? I was out in battle. I put on the tzitzis to protect myself. I'm going to keep them on. Please, he said, get me tzitzis. I need to start wearing tzitzis. So that's a path. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a path. It's called Torah, and it's called mitzvahs. It's called Yirah Shamayim. It's called Amunah. All these things are the pathway to Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you reveal the pathways to us, so then we will follow in your footsteps. We'll keep the mitzvahs the way that you want us to. And then ultimately, B'chol goyim mishuasecha, all of the goyim, all the nations will recognize that the salvation, again, the whole world is falling apart right now. It's not just Eretz Yisrael, it's not just Gaza. It is in America, and it is in England, and Australia, and South Africa, and Europe. Everywhere in the world is falling apart. Everybody needs salvation. If you listen to the words of even the most secular, unaffiliated person in the world, everyone's looking like, what's going to be? What's going to be with the world? What's going to be in the end? Is there any hope? Is there salvation? The answer is yes, there is salvation. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu becomes the king of the universe, and everybody recognizes that, and everybody follows suit, then yes, there is salvation. If we don't recognize that and we don't do that, then we are going to be, sadly, in deep trouble over here, not there. The whole world is in trouble. But, says Rav Hirsch, it starts with Klal Yisrael. Obviously, we are the only ones who understand. We're the only ones who know We're the only ones that have the built-in relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once that we do what we're supposed to do, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals so much more of His hashgacha, so much more how He's taking care of every little detail in our lives and the like, then everybody starts seeing, the whole world starts understanding, everybody realizes what's going on in the world, and then the whole world abandons their approach to life, and they will come under the umbrella of Hashem's sovereignty, His kingdom. Says the pasuk further in 4. Yoiducha amim. Here we go again. Yoiducha, in the nations they will praise. Elokim Hashem. Yoiducha amim kulam. All of the nations will end up praising and recognizing Hashem. And that's the goal. Says Rav Hirsch, as the knowledge of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is spreading through the world, because Klal Yisrael, it's not a coincidence that we're in the Dalit Kanvas Arts, we're in the four corners of the world. Why are we in the four corners of the world? We are spread out all across the world because when we are living and doing what we're supposed to do, we have an impact on the peoples of the world that are around us. When they see the Jewish people sincere and honest and serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu and not bending and not getting weak. Now it's Hanukkah time. The whole thing is that the Yavanim, the Greeks, came and they said, fine, be a Jew. You can still have a Jewish last name. You'll have your Jewish family and you'll make a bar mitzvah and a bat mitzvah and everything, but you're not going to live like a Jew. You're not going to keep kosher like a Jew. You're not going to get married like a Jew. You're not going to learn Torah like a Jew. You're not going to go daven like a Jew. You're not going to live like a Jew. You'll be Jew by name, but you're not going to do anything else besides that. So the fight of Yavan, of the Greeks against Klal Yisrael, is that we are not going to back down on our Yiddishkeit. We're not going to be overwhelmed by the pressures that there are in the world. We should be more like them, and we should assimilate more. Chas v'chalila, that's the downfall of the Jewish people. And this we've spoken about many times, and it's becoming very clear right now that Klal Yisrael is only as strong as Klal Yisrael is because we remain with this strong identity of what it means to be a Jew. The moment, or over the course of time in the years, that we slide into the world of assimilation and we are becoming much more like the people that we are amongst, so that makes it that the nations will turn against us and they don't want to see us, they don't want anything to do with us, they want to destroy us. It's not a coincidence that the place where you're finding the most volatile anti-Semitism in the world right now is college campuses. College campuses, but the best of the college campuses. The Ivy League schools and everything. Why is it over there? Why college campus? The brilliant people, the intelligent people, the ones that are supposed to be the future leaders of this country and other. Why? Because college campus, I believe, is probably the place where the Jew is assimilating the most into the non-Jewish world and culture and wisdom and the like. And on top of all of that, as the Netziv explains, we are very bothersome to the non-Jews because we're the smartest. So we're doing the best in school. We're getting the best grades. We get doctorates before anybody else. We get hired for positions in the law in law offices, and we get the residency that we want in that school when the other guy didn't get it. So they despise us because we're all over them. We're all there. We're in their face. We're like thorns in their side, like Paro says at the beginning of Sefer Shmos. We're like thorns in the sides of them. When we're doing what we're doing, nobody can comment on us. Nobody can put us down. Nobody can say, you're living like a Jew. And then they see that, and they begin to follow along suit, and they realize, Klal Yisrael is special. We're living a life according to Hashem. Miracles are happening for them. The Shekhinah is involved in their life. And then people will start to turn towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It starts small. That's what Hirsch is saying over here. First, only a few of the world's peoples will turn to Hashem. But eventually, all the nations of the earth will come to worship Him. And that's the goal. The goal is, we have to worry about Klal Yisrael. We have to get as many of the members of our nation on board as we possibly can. But the ultimate goal is that everybody, the whole world, begins serving Hashem. Says the next verse, hey, Yismechu v'yiranenu le'umim, the nations will be glad and they will rejoice. Ki sishpait amim mishor, for you will judge the nations in order. Le'umim ba'aretz tanchem sela, you'll lead the nations upon this earth, sela, forever and forever. So Rav Hirsch just points out over here that if you look in this verse, there's three different names that he refers to nations as. There's le'umim. Umim is one kind of a nation. Then there's amim, another kind of a nation, and goyim. There are the nations. Oh, it's not only in this verse over here. This is le'umim in this verse, and the next verse is amim. And we already spoke about the goyim. So Rav Hirsch just writes over here that you should understand that each one is like a different aspect of the nations. And he says like this: the word goy, which everybody thinks is a bad name, it's not. It's in the language in the Torah, which means a nation. So a goy, a nation, means a nation that shows itself to the outside as united into one body. So it's a nation that everybody says that's. I don't know if the United States fits into this category anymore because I think there's so much division that is here. But Palestinians, Yimach Shemam, they would fit into this category. They claim to be one nation. They're united as one, and they have a similar goal that they're attached to. An Am, what is an Am? Ayin Mem. A national community in its internal state of unity. Okay, whatever the difference is over there. And Le'umim is the state which unites and governs a nation and which acts as its spokesman. Basically, what Rav Hirsch writes over here is that you have all these different types of nations that there are in the world, each one in its own way. The ultimate goal is that every single nation that is there is eventually going to be under the auspices of Hashem. And that is, again, he's pushing this point very much. That is what we are striving for. Meaning we're here for ourselves, we're here for Klal Yisrael, we're trying to make a better, stronger Jewish nation, but we have to keep in mind as well that if it's only Klal Yisrael as the nation that recognizes Hashem and he's in the call of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're still going to be in trouble. Because then the nations of the world, which every single one it is, the Umim, the Amim, the Goyim, they're still going to be against us because they didn't unify, they didn't identify yet with Hashem. The ultimate goal is that every single one is going to identify that Hashem is the king. He's the ruler of the world. Klal Yisrael is a chosen nation, and therefore it's in their best interest to support us, not to go against us. And then, Be'ez Hashem, in that way, so there's going to be this continual ascension of the world coming to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and reaching the heights that we are supposed to reach. Okay, so a little further over here, I'd like to finish this film today because it's short. Yoducha amim Elokim, Yoducha amim kulam vav. And that is that the amim, the nations, once again, they will praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yoducha, they will admit, they will acknowledge, they will praise amim Hashem, they will praise Hashem, kulam, all of them. All of them will do this. Now Rav Hirsch puts these three verses together. Eretz nasnu yavula, the earth will yield its produce. Yavarcheinu Elokim Elokeinu, and our God will bless the world. Yavarcheinu Elokim, Hashem will bless us. V'yiru oisai, and all of the ends, v'yiru oisai kol afse'aretz, all the ends of the earth will fear HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because Hashem is blessing us, but everybody in the world is going to end up fearing Hashem. And that is the goal that we are striving for. Now, says Rav Hirsch, there's two stages that this ultimate revelation, and this, we'll call it the ultimate geula, or this, I'm sorry, that the ultimate geula, the redemption is going to take place. And he says like this: number one, it's the recognition of the existence of Hashem, and the obedience to His will permeates the ranks of the Jewish people alone. So number one is, Klal Yisrael has to recognize Hashem, but recognizing Hashem is not enough. That's nice. You recognize there's a God of the universe, He created the world, He took us out of Mitzrayim, He's been running the world all these years. That's beautiful. But it comes along with a second stage, and that is we have to be obedient. We have to follow what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. It's like a child who knows who his parents are, and he claims to have reverence for his parents. Yeah, I know, that's what my father said, but he disavows what his parents say. That's not a very obedient child. So if you have a nation of Klal Yisrael who is put into this world to worship and to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we acknowledge Hashem, yes, Baruch Hashem, as everybody likes to say, and Am Yisrael Chai, wonderful, Am Yisrael Chai, that's a great thing. But if we're not serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're not obedient to Hashem, we don't subjugate ourselves to the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to His mitzvahs and the like, again, Hashem's not asking for like overnight turnarounds of people that were never keeping mitzvahs. They should keep everything. The colonel in the army who never put on tefillin, who puts on tefillin, and that's where he starts, that's a big deal. This guy over here who was life was threatened, and he starts wearing tzitzis, and he says, this is the ephod, this is the breastplate of every single Jew, and he's proud of himself, and he showed it off to everybody last night while he was speaking. That's the beginning. Yeah, it has to progress, and you can't get stuck only with tzitzis and only with tefillin and only with keeping kosher. The Torah is vast; it covers every aspect of our lives, but it starts someplace. Hashem knows that people can't change like that, so it starts. First stage, Klal Yisrael has to recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and recognizing with obedience, which means I'm following the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to live my life. I'm following in Hashem's footsteps. Secondly, that when the worship of Hashem has been spread amongst the other nations, their leaders will submit to the supreme authority of Hashem. So it's first starts with Klal Yisrael. We worship Hashem. We serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are amongst all the nations of the world. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, one of the reasons He spread us out amongst the Dalit Confluence of ours, the four corners, is because when the rest of the world will see the way that we are doing things, and they see that our determination and our resilience and our keeping of the laws, the way that we are supposed to, it makes an impact on the rest of the world. So the leaders of that country, the leaders of that world, and we're seeing it slowly. There are certain leaders that are behind Klal Yisrael 100%. They see us, they see what we're doing, they see that we are entitled to defend ourselves, they see the glory of the Jewish nation, and they're saying nice things. There are those that are completely against us right now. For whatever their anti-Semitic reasons are, completely against us. They will learn. They will learn. Everybody will learn. That's what Rabbi Hirsch is saying. The goal is, but they can only learn if Klal Yisrael is strong together as one, unified and united in the service of Hashem. If we're not going to get on the same page in our service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so then we're not going to be the nation that creates this global movement of believing in Hashem and serving Hashem and changing the world around us. And again, not to be the dead horse or a live horse, but we are seeing right now that there's a unifying message that's being amongst Klal Yisrael, not only in the Israelis and not only in Eretz Yisrael, even in America. There are people that never did anything before that started taking things upon themselves, little mitzvahs here and there, Tehillim that they never said before that they are saying now, davening they never did, Shabbos that they never went to before, baking challahs, all different things. Why? Because there's like I said, there's a revolution of Yiddishkeit that is going on amongst Klal Yisrael right now, and that we have to be a part of. And if you're already in the fold of Yiddishkeit, so then whatever you can do to convince somebody else to join you in the fold, to bring them in, that means that Kiruv is a lot more likely to succeed right now than it did the last 10 years in America. America has been like a wasteland of Yiddishkeit, of Baalei Tshuva for the last 10 years, been very, very difficult. Right now, people are thinking, what exactly does it mean to be a Jew? What does it mean? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want me? If the soldiers out there in the fields can be putting on tzitzis for the first time, why can't I put on tzitzis over here? If they're making Kabbalah Shabbos out there in the fields of Gaza and doing it under enemy fire, why can't I keep Shabbos over here in Los Angeles or New York or wherever a person is? Why can't I do that? So it's much more in the minds of people right now, and we have to be able to make it in such a way that it's going to be. Says Rav Hirsch. So Rav Hirsch writes over here that I just realized that this year was sponsored today. I was supposed to say at the very beginning of this year, and I'm sorry that I didn't. Completely forgot. Let me just tell you who this year is sponsored by. I hope the family will forgive me for leaving out the sponsorship. We'll say it now. This is sponsored in memory of the mother of Rav Moshe Kamiansky, whose name was Chaya Bas Moshe. It's her yortzeit. I believe her yortzeit was on Shabbos, I believe. So the shir is sponsored in her memory and by the Goodwin and the Kamiansky families. The neshama of Chaya Bas Moshe should have an aliyah. Be'ez Hashem. Okay. And the third stage that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for us to get to, and that He's yearning for, is that all these leaders who will acknowledge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that's running the world, and Klal Yisrael is a special one, and the like, that all of these leaders, they will withdraw entirely from their positions of power, and all the nations will render their tribute, their praise to Hashem without an intermediary. So the ultimate goal is that who's ever the president of that country, he's gone. The leader of that religion, he's gone. The leader of this nation, gone. They're not needed anymore because every single person is under the jurisdiction of Hashem. So I don't need somebody else because we're all in line, meaning we're all going to live a life, the whole world's going to live a life according to Torah law. Even the Goyim have an obligation to live a life according to the Torah laws that apply to them. And therefore, there won't be danger in the world, there won't be difficulty in the world, there won't be wars in the world. It's going to be a world of peace, of real shalom. At this point in history, peace is impossible. You cannot make peace with people that are not peaceful individuals. However, when it will happen, and that is that the Jewish people will do what we're supposed to do. And the leaders of those countries that we are in will see that we are living our lives according to Hashem. And they influence their people as well to begin to recognize there's a path that we are moving on. We're supposed to be going in that particular direction. So then you can drop all the leaders, and everybody now there's only one leader, and that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's the king. Yeah, Klal Yisrael will have its leaders, Rabbanim and the like and everything, but we're all serving one, and that's serving Hashem. And therefore, says Rav Hirsch, that's the direction that we're trying to move in at this point. We're trying to move into a direction where we're all in one, we're all going to the same place, and that is there's one address, that's Hashem. And then, at that point, says the Pasuk, that's when Hashem is going to bless us. Hashem's going to bring us the bracha, and we reach the goal of all our mission among the nations by proclaiming Hashem as our God, who demands that we serve Him. Not with just simple belief, but obedience. That's when Klal Yisrael is going to reap the brachas from Hashem. So we're seeing miracles, we're seeing brachas and here and there. There's still dark times and there's still difficulty and there's still tragedy that's going on. In order for us to have full brachas from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to be able to do what we are doing, which is the mission that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has put us in this world. And that mission is not just to believe in Hashem, but to serve Hashem. Amunah, without anything after it, it's nice, but it doesn't accomplish what we're supposed to do. Amunah, the belief in Hashem, is what's supposed to get us to everything else. That's the pshat. And the Gemara tells us that in every generation, the great leaders of those generations, David HaMelech, Yeshaya, Micha, all different ones, they saw Klal Yisrael, they started whittling away at the mitzvahs that there were until they got down to Chavakuk and said, there's one mitzvah that the Jewish people have to keep. And that mitzvah, he says, is Amunah. So the famous question on that Gemara is, what does that mean? We only have to keep Amunah? What about Shabbos? What about Taras HaMishpacha? What about Kashrus? What about Tzedakah? What does it mean? You only have to keep the mitzvah of Amunah? And the answer that is given by many of the Mefarshim is, of course you have to keep all the mitzvahs. But if you have Amunah as the foundation, then all the mitzvahs are going to be built on that foundation. So Amunah is the foundation. It's what allows us to build up the rest of the Torah on top of it. And then Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, as we begin to do that, we are believing and we are serving Hashem. We are obedient to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the rest of the world will see that and they will come along as well. and then Hashem becomes the sovereign king over the entire universe. Just a couple of more meforshim over here that I'd like to read to you. So the Malbim writes on these words, the land will give its bounty and the blessings will be coming from Hashem. He says, Mitzatchu Elokeinu, when Hashem is our God, in the 7th verse, when Hashem is recognized as our God, so then the blessings will come. What does it mean, Elokeinu? Says the Malbim, HaMashkiach Aleinu Bepratos. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mashkiach, He's watching over us. Bepratos, in something called Hashgacha Pratis, the divine intervention that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has over us. That is when we have that, we recognize that, we see that, that is when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring the blessing, is going to bless us, our fields, our bounty, our lives, our children, our parnasa, our sustenance. It's going to come when there is a recognition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world with tremendous and precise hashgacha pratis, divine intervention. Meaning, we are obligated. It's a big part of our emunah. A major part of our emunah is we must recognize that Hashem is the mashkiach, He's running the world. The Rosh writes in his Sefer Orches Chaim that if you believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but you do not believe in Hashgacha Pratis, you do not believe that Hashem is governing every single aspect of your life, then you don't really believe in Hashem. Because what separates a person as a believer to a real believer is someone who acknowledges that every little detail and every nuance and everything that's happening in my life, it's all being governed and being run and being guided by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you believe in the concept of Hashem as the master of the universe, if you believe that Hashem is watching what's going on in this world, if you believe that once in a while HaKadosh Baruch Hu intervenes and He does something on your behalf, so that's nice, it's better than not believing at all. However, says the Rosh, you don't really believe in Hashem. It's only when you get down to the understanding, and this is the way that Rabbi Chaskel Levi explains over there, it's only when you get to the place where you can acknowledge that every single minuscule detail in your life is being decided and being guided and being run by Hashem, that's when you can say, Ani Ma'amin Be'emun Hashem, I really believe in Hashem. Until you get to that point, when you think that there are other things that are going on, and there's other powers in the world that are contributing to what is taking place in your life, and there's other people that are going to make a decision that's going to have an effect on you that Hashem wasn't able to control, so then you're not really holding in the world of Emunah. It's a weakened stage of Emunah. But once it's completely, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like these soldiers yesterday, they themselves recognize there's no other way to explain how they survived bullets flying at their heads besides that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is controlling everything. How did they escape? They walked exactly at the moment that they needed to get out of the line of attack of a missile. How can you explain that? It's not me. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when you begin to see everything in your life is all Hashem, then He's Elokeinu, He's our God. When Hashem is our God, meaning I recognize that He's my God in every single aspect of my life, then Hashem says, I'll give you bracha. I'll give you blessing. I'll take care of you. The bounty, the parnasa, the brius, the health, the goodness, the blessing, everything will come. Because you recognize all from me, and I can do anything. Hashem has no limitations. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not limited in anything. He is the creator, the master of the world. He can do whatever He wants. So He can't do that, He could do that. But you have to recognize, Elokeinu, He's my God. He's the one that's running everything. And therefore, says the Malbim, only when we reach that place in our emunah, only when we reach the world where we see everything as hashgacha pratis happening in front of us, and it's revolving, the whole world is revolving around HaKadosh Baruch Hu's decisions of what he does and how He does it, then Yevachenu, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He's going to load us up with the brachas, with the blessings that we are looking for in this world. And finally, the words of the Radak on this language of Yevachenu, that Hashem will bless us, Says the Radak, V'az, and then, B'rois hagoyim, when the nations of the world will see, Ki Hashem imanu, that Hashem is with us. Ki batachnu boy, we trusted in Hashem. We didn't waver in our faith and our trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even when it was difficult, and even when things did not look so good, and even when it was harrowing times in our history, but we were betachnu, we trusted in Hashem. V'yiru oisai, we feared, we had reverence for Hashem. Kol afsei aretz, I'm sorry. V'yiru oisai kol afsei aretz. Then all of the nations of the world, in the corners, everywhere that they are, at the ends of the world, everybody will fear and have reverence of Hashem. So it's once again, says the Radak, the same idea. And that is, whether or not the world is going to come along for the ride of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's existence and serve Him and be obedient and accept that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one God of the universe, it all depends if we continue to be firm and steadfast in our faith and our trust in Hashem. If they will look and they will see that we are resilient and we are determined and we are continue to go, and the truth of the matter is, again, that's really what at least Klal Yisrael is beginning to view that and to see that right now, and the world who's willing to acknowledge it is willing to see it, and the secularists who are understanding and looking and seeing, wow, that's Klal Yisrael. That's, my wife told me this. Woman spoke yesterday for the ladies by Shalosh Shudas. She's also one of the survivors of this thing. Not a religious girl. Apparently not so religious, and halavai, she'll get to the world of religion. But my wife said that when she got there and she looked at this room full of religious women in Tarzana, California, that came to greet her and empathize with her and support, she just broke down and cried. Why? Because she couldn't believe that there's so far away from the battle lines of Eretz Yisrael, so far away from what tragedy she went through, there were 30, 40, 50 women that cared enough about her to come and empathize and support her and let her know that we're here for you. So everybody's beginning to see how special Klal Yisrael is. Every Jew is beginning to see, if you see the amounts of chesed that are going on right now, the millions and millions of dollars that are being raised for the terrorists, the families of whose parents or whatever are hostage or that were killed by the terrorists, or their fathers are out there on the front lines fighting, and the mothers are trying to take care of 16 kids all at one time, and she's going out of her mind. And you see the amount of chesed that is pouring in to Eretz Yisrael and being taken all around the country over there. It's magnificent. What other country, what other nation do you find that does such a thing? You don't find any other nation besides Klal Yisrael that is so connected as one, that we will take care of each other as we'll take care of ourselves. You have to love your fellow Jew the way that you love yourself. What would I want if I was, God forbid, in such a situation? How would I want my children to be taken care of if Khalila they were? How would I want to be the people to think about me? There's this fellow who's going around, Rav Shai Gaucher. Graucher is his last name. He's this one of Nenatzech B'Yachad, or B'Yachad Nenatzech. We will be victorious when we're together as one. And this guy I don't even think he sleeps. It's impossible that he could sleep, because he's running around the world. He's running around Eretz Yisrael, taking care of soldiers, taking care of victims, taking care of children, taking care of almanas. He's a one-man chesed machine. So he was interviewed recently on one of these podcasts, and he's talking about what he does and how he does and the support he's getting from the whole world, and they're just pouring in millions and millions. Keep doing what he's doing. So he said, tell us some stories. Tell us some stories of what's going on over there. So one of his things has been that he wants every person who's suffering and struggling right now with the loss of loved ones or the fathers and they should have something that's going to make them happy, so they can forget their sorrows and the tragedies going on in their life. So he heard about a child, 8-year-old boy, I think lost his parents in October 7th, and the kid has been devastated and depressed and down since everything happened, as anybody could imagine. He hasn't spoken, he hasn't smiled, nothing. So this guy, Shai Gracher, goes to meet with the boy. And he spends 3 hours with him. And he tries to empathize and let the boy know that he's here. And he said, listen, whatever you want, whatever toy you want, I'm going to get you. You got to tell me what you want. 3 hours, the boy does not open his mouth. Doesn't say a word. So he's telling him, listen, I'm telling you, whatever you want, I'm going to get it for you. I want you to be happy. I want you to move on. Please, please tell me what you want. 3 hours, not a word out of this kid's mouth. So this fellow, he's got a lot to do. He's involved with so many projects in Eretz Yisrael. 3 hours he spent already. The boy's not going to speak. He can't stay there any longer. So he looks at the boy and he says, if your family had to have my number, if you change your mind and you know what you want, tell them to call me. I will bring it to you immediately. He says goodbye to the boy. He starts walking to the door. He's like out the door and he hears, wait! And he turns around and the little boy looks and says, I do want something. I do want something. He says, what do you want? Tell me. I always wanted one of those electric cars that I could drive. He says, you got it. He runs out, makes his calls. 2 hours later, he comes back with the electric car in hand, delivers it to the boy, puts him inside, and the boy's driving around. The first time that he smiled in 1 month. What other nation will you find like this? The Hamas is killing their civilians as they try to run away. No nation, no Arab nation wants to bring them in and let them cross their border to take care of them. There's 50 Arab nations. You realize that if everyone would just take like 20,000 people, we'll take care of all the Palestinians will be taken care of. Nobody wants them. Nobody does chesed for them. Nobody cares about them. We have to have Americans convincing the Israelis to send in humanitarian aid because nobody else will take care of them. But Klal Yisrael, we're one. We're one. We're one people. We're one body. We're one group. We're one soul. And therefore we take care of each other. When the world will see that in the global way in which it's beginning to happen, so Klal Yisrael comes along, those that are on the fringe, and even outside the camps, they will come along, and eventually the leaders will come along, says Rav Hirsch, until it gets to the point everybody recognizes Hashem, Hu Elokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one God in the universe. Ein Oid Milvano, there's nothing else besides Hashem. We serve Him with all of our heart, all of our might. Betachnu boy, we never gave up our trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We served Him in such a way. V'yiru Oiso Kalaf Se'aretz, then all of the Goyim, all the nations that are in the far corners of the world, the ends of the world, they will come and they will revere Him and they will serve Him as well. And then when that will happen, Be'ez Hashem, the world, all the problems, all of the issues, all of the wars and all the battles and all the division and all the mess that this world is in, it will just leave, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will bring the ultimate Yeshua, as we said over here, the ultimate salvation, and that is when the world reaches its perfection, fruition, and that is with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheira v'yameinu. You're welcome. Yes, sure. One of the guys.